On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. Information warfare is happening right now. There's a great deal of information that's being put out on both sides of this equation. And the one side that's got the loudest bullhorn, the loudest speaker, happens to be the left, happens to be the propaganda machine. And they are making a lot of noise. The one thing I want to ask people to think about, critical thinking. When you're hearing these stories, when you're hearing people talk about things, I hear a lot of people saying that Trump divides and this person divides and all this. But I've listened, and I'm hoping you have too, but there's been a number of different speeches I've heard of Trump's where he has tried to unite everybody together. I don't believe Trump is trying to divide us. And when I think of division, when I think of where divisions come from, well, for 3.5 years, the media has done nothing but insist that this is a bad man. Constantly. They've tried to impeach him. They've tried to do all these horrible things. They've tried to take down his Twitter account. They have gone to great lengths to hurt this president. The COVID-19 was meant to stop all of the forward momentum of the economy, which oddly today we're back up over 27,000. Today the market closed extremely high because the job numbers were looking very good. So our stock market right now is about 3,000 short of where it was when it hit its max. But again, they tried to stop that, didn't work. So now we've got this horrible situation that then created wonderful protests that are supposed to happen and are glorious and are part of this Constitution. And thank God we have the First Amendment to allow us to protest, peacefully protest. These protests were taken over by a radical faction of our society. Now, this radical faction's been labeled a lot of names as of late in the media. And a lot of talking points have been thrown around about Trump using the military, how Trump is going to use the National Guard and all these different things and this fear campaign and all of this. Now, I will say, and I was and still am concerned about the idea of the military being used on our forces. I don't think that's going to happen. And there's some slides to, again, evidence that. I think right now is the time to ask, who is trying to divide? Who is trying to say that this over here is bad, but this over here is good? Who's trying to unite? Who's trying to see the good in all the things? Who's not? Because there seems to be some specific leaders. There seems to be governors and mayors. There seems to be a lot of news media. There seems to be a very large push right now to tarnish police officers, to try to get rid of police officers, to try to keep any sort of military or National Guard out of the city streets so protesters can still run around and cause damage, at least the ones that are causing damage. And they don't want anybody to try to stop this. And what that leads to is lawlessness. And that is definitely not what America is. It's definitely not what we want our cities to be. We certainly don't want corruption in the police force by any means. We don't want any sort of police brutality at all. That's unacceptable. But having some sort of force when things do get bad, who are you going to call? It's certainly not going to be Ghostbusters because they're not going to come to your rescue. So who are you going to call when it really does get bad? And can we actually come up with better policing techniques that maybe aren't as violent? Certainly worth looking into as well. There's a lot going on right now. Let's get into these posts because they're really kind of leading us down a major path. And I'll tell you this much, what it sounds like and what it's being hinted like tomorrow, Saturday in DC, is going to be a very big day, a very big, exciting day. Sounds like it's being planned for tomorrow. Post 4412, we are fighting for our survival. This is so true. Donald Trump shared this really cool letter. I kind of tapped on it last show I did at the very end, but it was pretty long. There was one section in here that I thought was worth reading. So down here, I understand you had to stick to the assigned narrative, which did not include 3 years of corrupt investigations and evidence to destroy this president, his office, and his lawful free election. Nancy has no tolerance for dissent in the ranks, including those with stars. You said nothing of the ugly, hate-filled, disgraceful comments of Pelosi, Schumer, Perez, and other Democrat hacks defaming the president and his office. You said nothing of the unlawful sanctuary cities and the unlawful release of hoodlums. You said nothing of the resistance movements to paralyze our courts and our government operations. You said nothing of the obstruction and subversion of our immigration laws. You said nothing of MS-13 killers and drug cartels who own huge sections of our major cities. Jim, do you think that hateful rhetoric and those corrupt actions were inspiring and unifying? Do you think the D's or DIs at Paris Island would find such behavior as unifying? So again, this was John M. Dowd leaving a very strong message for James Mattis, this guy. We're going to get to him a little more. So again, Trump is pointing out a very interesting letter that Dowd mentioned. Now, Dowd has also been brought into the news regarding this voicemail, and I'm going to read it verbatim because there's a lot of talk about what he was saying and that he was basically conspiring, and they feel that this is proof. I don't know if I agree with that. I definitely think it's worded interestingly. He, without a doubt, chose his words very carefully, and you can tell stutters at times because of it. So anyways, let's see what he says, and then we'll talk about it. Hey, Rob, this is John again. Maybe I'm sympathetic. I understand your situation, but let me see if I can't state it in starker terms. If you have, and it wouldn't surprise me if you've gone on to make a deal with and work with the government, I understand that you can't join the defense. So that's one thing. If, on the other hand, there's information that implicates the president, then we've got a national security issue, or maybe a national security issue. I don't know. Some issues we've got to deal with, not only for the president, but for the country. So, then we need some kind of heads up. Just for the sake of protecting all of our interests, if we can, without you having to give up any confidential information. So, and if it's the former, then, remember what we've always said about the president and his feelings towards Flynn, and that still remains. But, well, in any event, let me know. And I appreciate your listening and taking the time. Thanks, pal. So to me, what I hear is someone basically saying, hey, look, if you're going to give some slime on the president, or if you're going to basically join with them and tell them something like, hey, can you kind of give us a heads up because that's going to have repercussions? That's going to get spun. I mean, they knew that whatever this guy said, it was going to get spun. It was going to get leaked to the media. It was going to end up in headlights, and it was going to be taken out of context. So essentially, he's like, hey, for the sake of damage control, can you give us a heads up if you can, on any information that you're going to provide, or if Trump's done something wrong, or if Flynn's done something wrong, or whatever. Hey, just if you can, kind of give us a heads up. It'd probably be useful and helpful. That's my take on it. I don't know. Those are the words. You can decide for yourself. Post 4413, got a couple of links that we're shared with here. Those loyal to our constitutional republic and our command structure. Those loyal to the office of the president and the will of the people. Those who swore an oath to protect and defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Those good people who serve proudly for America. Castle Rock, for God and country. Castle Rock's being brought up a lot right now. And I think there's a huge tie into the Marines. The Marines are the one part of the armed forces that specifically govern the president, like Air Force One, the helicopter, Marine One, right? I think that's like the Marines. And so there's this whole weird detail around how the Marines and the president interact and how the other armed forces, he is the commander-in-chief, but there's some differences. I don't fully understand it all. But the Marines, are very specific. I grew up next to El Toro Marine Base, by the way. It was a great base. I loved it. We had awesome air shows every year. So for those Marines out there, especially anybody that's ever trained in an F-18, you've probably spent time at the base near where I grew up. So again, Ambassador Kadenow becomes the 5th Pentagon official to resign in 7 days. Bunch of people are dropping. Why? Well, there's some bad people out there. True. 2, the deep state's, I think, going to try to make use of these people for the next round. Again, these things are going to inflame up until the point of the election. Again, we've got some future slides coming in here that are going to demonstrate what their plan is for September. So again, I think the big picture is to get some of these people out, from the Trump side, we got to get people in there that he can trust. So I'm sure some of it's happening that way. Again, I think there's a lot of things going on, but the deep state is pulling all stops out. All assets are out and being utilized. Trump and everybody else are trying really hard to figure out who they can trust and who they can't trust, who's on their side, who's not, who's dividing, who's not. Again, who's leaking information, who's not. There's a lot of stuff that's going into this. So again, people are dropping. This is a great, I love Dan Bongino, just no matter whatever happens, I love this dude. It's a great video, but basically all he's talking about is how the whole military insurgency act thing about using the military on forces, well, in the United States, within the confines of our United States. A couple points on this. One, he was talking specifically about how he's hearing from credible sources that there are people that would have basically told Trump no. People in high-ranking positions that literally, possibly, they're saying, would have declined an order from the commander-in-chief if he had asked people to go into cities. Now, what I think is really going on, and there's a cover for it, and I believe this is the big picture. Again, they're painting it that the military is going to come in. I don't believe that's the case because that is super scary. Even the patriots, I think, would not support that as much. Military being involved for sure, and a lot of these assets that we're dealing with are from other countries for sure. What I think is going to happen, National Guard is going to set itself up in a number of different places. Utah maybe being an exception. Got a little thing coming up here in a second on that. But what's going to then happen possibly is the military come in small groups and under the cover of the National Guard might be able to handle some of these arrests, maybe taking a few people into custody, maybe getting involved in some places that they couldn't have before. And again, military precision, the fact that some of these people are protected, so you definitely need somebody more than just like a SWAT team. And it needs to be done covertly, frankly, let's be honest. So like I've said before, almost like maybe a SEAL kind of incursion within our own borders under the guise of the National Guard being here. I don't know, but Dan Bongino's saying they're going to not do this if Trump gave that order. I don't think that order is going to happen. Now, this weekend, again, it's going to be very interesting. But again, National Guard all over the place. It is not going to be the military. No. So we'll see how it plays out. Again, Dan Bongino, good stuff. Post 4414, EAM loyalists. Emergency something management is, talk about, I think, like at least the little bit of looking up that I saw on this. If there's a nuclear strike or anything along those lines, this EAM kind of thing happens, or emergency alert management or something like that. Anyway, read one of that is POTUS Twitter's removal. Read two, central communication blackout, continental United States. So they're trying to get rid of the communications. Class movement, so Pelosi or Pence, that was supposed to be the next step. So they would have had one of these two take over, right? Movement of the military assets, the 10th Mountain, 1st Marine, CPSD Marine, QVIR to the central locations under guise of citizen riot control. This is the thing that I think might kind of happen on a little more smaller scale, but very well seems like this could be where we're at. I'm not quite sure what's going on with this one, class movement Pelosi Pence. I don't know if that's a D-class concept or if they're going to try to make a classification movement. I also saw something, if Trump feels for the sake of continuity of the government, he can actually order the second and possibly third individuals to go to specific locations and bunker down because if something happens to him, the continuity of government needs to continue, which if you think about it, it'd be kind of interesting if he somehow managed to put either Pence and or Pelosi into specific locations. Lately, too, I've been hearing a lot of information that maybe Pence is a sleeper. I don't know. I don't know. I like the guy. Like me and my girlfriend talk about him. He's just like a sweet man. So it's really hard not to like the dude. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. I'm just trying to report everything I'm hearing. I think he's good, but I don't know. Pelosi, I'm pretty sure I know where she's at. Red 5 National Mill commence CENTCOM, I don't know. Communication? Centralized communication? National military. And then round 6, Secretary of Defense is going to instruct, I guess. I think this is kind of what the plan is. I don't speak military talk very well, so I'm not sure there's a lot of people out there that do. Castle Rock's coming back into play. So again, something big is being planned, being talked about, and they're trying to give us an indication that everything's okay. The plan's happening. This is extremely frustrating to a lot of people, especially those that keep saying follow the plan. They are getting very frustrated right now with Q. But I think this is how it has to play out. And I really do think the 10 days of darkness started. Again, there's this guy that's done all sorts of crazy stuff with the dates and this marathon being 26.11 miles, which actually equals 2 years, 6 months, and 11 days. And he does his time breakdown from, October 30th of 2017. And he gets us to, the end of May. And then the 10 days of darkness, he puts us up at, I can't believe I did that off of memory. That's just disgusting. But the 5th of the 6th, basically Friday, Saturday. Everything that's being planned out for tomorrow, Saturday in Washington, D.C., is pretty much leading me to believe, and many others, that tomorrow is the big day. Gloves are coming off tomorrow. Somebody said underneath D.C., under that skirt, there's some amazing things. I thought it was a neat way to say, but sounds like there might be some crazy stuff in Washington, D.C. that because of the presidents, because of underground tunnels, because of all the Capitol, and because of how many senators and stuff, there's probably quite an array of crazy stuff underneath the ground in D.C. So depending on how things play out, it'll be interesting. But riot coordination in select safe zone cities, decontrol mayors are allowing these staged events. We got former active military brass assertions of unconstitutional threat to the Constitution, mutiny, basically. So we've got some people that are outwardly admitting that they're mutiny. It's mutiny when you go against the president. That was one thing Dan Bongino was really pointing out. So the mainstream media's public optics staging is underway. They're trying to get this to the next level, and they need to. And the next level, the Patriots are well aware of what the next level is. And it sounds like it's all about the White House. It sounds like it's all about trying to symbolically take out the White House. Now, what's interesting is Trump's up in Maine today. Reasonably sure he's going to be coming home. I'm thinking he's going to be in the White House, but I'm kind of curious. Do we keep the president in harm's way, or do we potentially have him in Air Force One where he's safe? I remember Q Post talking about that. So it's going to be very interesting to see where President Trump is in regards to what happens tomorrow, and if Pence and Pelosi have to be put into their little special corners so everything is underway and safe. And is that going to be a form of jailing maybe for Pelosi? Because we might have enough information on her, and maybe that's how we make it look. Again, speculation, of course. This weekend's going to be huge for sure. How it plays out, I don't know. James Mattis denounces President Trump, describes him as a threat to the Constitution. It's just a bitter ex-employee here. Right here, Donald Trump is the first president in my lifetime who does not try to unite the American people, does not even pretend to try. I've got friends that are on the left. They say this kind of stuff all the time. I've listened to so many of Trump's speeches. He, generally speaking, tries to unite. There is a sense of kindness about what he's trying to say. Now, as of late, when trying to talk tough towards the thugs in the streets right now that are burning and looting, yeah. And has he probably stepped over? Yeah, he's definitely making it hard for those of us that are trying to speak positive of him. He's not making it easier for me, but that's Trump. I mean, it is. Senior military leaders being called to testify to Congress about George Floyd protest response. Got angry lawmakers are going to summon the top Pentagon leaders to Capitol Hill next week, after Saturday. After Saturday, just keep that in mind. All this stuff, because it's growing demonstrations, and they want to know, whoa, what are you guys doing? What are you militarily going to do? Trump, you said you were going to use active military force to deal with the growing protests. I think they're making a big deal about it. I know Trump said it, and oddly, he was quoting Mattis. Not Mattis. The guy's name's going to come up here in a second. Give me a second. I'll find him. But he was quoting that individual. We got an article, so I don't want to misquote who it was. Or whatever. Pentagon distanced itself from Trump on crowd control and laments murder of Floyd. Yeah, this guy, Mark Esper. This is the one I was talking about. I do not support invoking the Insurrection Act, he said. The opinion to use active duty forces in law enforcement roles should only be used as a matter of last resort and only in the most urgent and dire situations. We are not in one of those situations now. Esper admitted that he regretted describing the use of National Guard troops for dominating the battle space. His quote, dominating the battle space, in a leaked call on Monday with the president and governors. So it sounds like Esper said the word dominating. Trump has reiterated it and gotten all sorts of flack, but not really the one who said it initially. And I think that's one of the things that Trump keeps trying to point out is when your deep state people use the words, Obama said thug, Trump says thug, everyone freaks out. No one freaked out when Obama said it. Again, dominating. Deep state person says dominating, no big deal. But if Trump says dominating, right? So again, it's just double standard. That's absurd. Again, we got this revolt here. This is just talking about Jim Mattis once again. And there's absolutely no way I would subscribe to this thing for anything. There's not even news in here that's worth the $10 a month they're trying to charge. Anyway, Post 4416. Infiltrated instead of invasion. Minneapolis City Council president, yeah, she's talking about getting rid of the cops completely. Turning the police into something else, some other form of police. I don't know. There's discussion still going around, but we're going to shut down the police in Minneapolis. Okay. I mean, hey, so that's what they're talking about. That's how insurgency works. That's how you infiltrate something. You from the inside, then you start to wreck it from the inside. Some of our favorite people, such as Obama, sorry, allergies or something. But yeah, he also said the same thing. Funny how that plays out. Post 4417, remember your oath. Remember why you joined. It's about the person standing next to you. People join the armed forces, and God bless you all, by the way. Thank you all for your service. All of you. My grandparents both did, and I've had a lot of great friends. I have not. My parents didn't, but I have grandparents, both sides, all of them. Very powerful. Love what you do and why you guys do it. And I'll tell you what, these people do it because they believe in the United States. They believe in the Constitution. They believe in the freedoms that so many of us take for granted often. These people are the reason that people can go out and riot. They provide us the freedoms to do that. They provide us the freedoms for people that actually burn the flag. As much as it drives us insane, it's those freedoms that make America great. Some people do things with their freedoms that are upsetting. Some people do things with freedoms that are wonderful. Long story short, as long as I'm not screaming fire in a movie theater, it's freedom that allows me to express myself in a lot of ways. And thank you. And this is what they're talking about with the oath. You give an oath to protect this Constitution against enemies that are both foreign and domestic. This is a great little article here that I think is worth the listen to. This CIA guy, Brian Dean Wright, I guess. That's a lot of names. First off, when you have three names, I think it was the movie Conspiracy Theory where, right, they're always assassinated when they have three names. It's horrible. But Brian Dean Wright, he's a former CIA officer. Anywho.
Is that the nation is panicking. 71% of us want the National Guard in our cities tonight. 58% of us want the military in our cities tonight. All right, the people are panicking. The country is on fire. Now, who is attacking us? Mr. Esper should know this. Right. It's Antifa, Department of Justice, NYPD. Others are saying this very clearly. These are people, by the way, that we faced back in the 1960s and 70s and early 80s. These were people who were far leftist, Marx, Lenin, folks who embraced that ideology. They allied with Black Panther movements, and it took many years to finally put it down. Very dangerous. And now this same group, who is allied, by the way, with the Democratic Socialists, we're talking to Bernie Bros and Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, they're back. They're back with firebombs. They're back with bricks in our suburbs and our downtowns. That's something that Mr. Esper clearly doesn't understand. And then finally, we have a media that is feeding this flame, this horrific fire, this seditiousness. You have brought this up many times, including tonight. Let me read a headline from Slate magazine. Just yesterday, it said the following. Peaceful protests are an important tool, but so is violence. So now we have a media filling the airways full of this crap. Yeah. Put it all together. And the piece that you mentioned, no more police, because we're going to defund those folks. We can't put forward the National Guard because that would be escalation. So now we take off the military from the table. What does that leave, Tucker? Let me tell you what it leaves. Vigilante justice. That's exactly. It's you and me and everybody watching this program arming ourselves. Is that how we run a republic? No, sir, it is not. And you do not want a country that goes there. And that is precisely where the nation is headed. And we need for all of our leadership to understand that. And if Secretary Esper doesn't get it, doesn't understand that the oath is to protect ourselves from threats, both foreign and domestic. By God, get the hell out of the Pentagon and let somebody lead who gets it. Because that is the oath that he took, that I took, and that the people of this country demand of our leadership in this moment, because we are on fire. Someone do something about it.
Do you think saying switch to decaf might be like a little too late? I'm just saying. Yeah, this guy's serious and he's right on the money. And this Esper guy is a joke. Is he next to fall? Right? Who knows? But the stuff he's saying, and again, the deep state's showing themselves right now. This is an issue of show and tell, if you will. And again, the gloves are off. We are obviously at a turning point that they think is a turning point, and I believe the Patriots are prepared for this turning point. Again, tomorrow. Feels so much like this is going to be how it plays out. This is biblical. This was actually super cool. I had to do a little digging on this one because it was tripping me out. This thing's getting a lot of play. I think this happened, yesterday, right? Today's 5th, yesterday. Crazy lightning strike, right? You see it, and then I love it. And of course, the sound effects aren't really helping, right? But do you see that first big one? I don't think I'll be able to pause it, but notice the craziness around the sides, like plasma or something. Again, it looks like an energy weapon. It's very fun. It very possibly could be. And what I was thinking, I'm like, okay, so it looks like it was in line with the Capitol here, or whatever that is. What is that? Whatever that thing is. It hit it directly. But again, I got the site here of the monument, Washington Monument. Good Lord. Got the Lincoln Memorial, Washington Monument Medal, and the Capitol. And I swear to God, from the image that's happening here, it looks like where that big one struck is the Capitol area. Hard to tell, because it's like right over in here. Anyway, I don't know. Spent way too much time on this. Biblical for sure. I mean, when things come from the sky, it's usually a good idea to assume it's God, but we've got weaponry that does stuff like this too. So interesting that this area is being hit. Apparently a couple officers, by the way, were injured, which is not cool. 4419. What the heck is that? That's right. And again, that looks like plasma to me, I'll be honest, but plasma can also happen from an energy weapon, and that's a very thick bolt of lightning, a very thick bolt of lightning. I'm not an expert, not going to pretend to be one here, but that is pretty crazy what's going on with that. Let's see what's going on here. I don't remember what they shared, if it's just the same video again. I think it is. Yeah, it's just the same thing again. I don't care about that. Shoot. Post 4420, do you see what's happening? Just heard that Mayor Browser is kicking the Utah National Guard out of the D.C. hotel tomorrow. More than 1,200 troops from 10 states are being evicted. This is unacceptable. The D.C. hotels, they're trying to keep the people from being able to have the National Guard there because of what they're planning for this weekend. Now, to my understanding, I swear I saw today that someone was just made, and it was a Pentagon person, was just made the governor of D.C. I don't know if that's something they do in time of war. I don't know what the heck that's about, because D.C. is kind of this weird little thing, right? But there's a mayor, maybe a governor, which if there's a governor, that supersedes what the mayor can do. So this is not done, and I'm guaranteeing you that either that or Trump's going to offer up some of his hotels. Something's going to happen, but it ain't playing out like this. But again, this is who's trying to keep this from happening. They desperately want to allow this. Our elected leaders are trying to allow this. This is not okay. Do you see what's happening? Post 4421. Organizers say 1 million people are coming to protest in D.C. this weekend. And the honest thing they keep bringing up, which is sort of funny, is if they really worry about coronavirus, if that's really their concern, then why is the media not really saying anything about it? Or the other way to look at it is, then this is a biological attack on our nation's capital, right? 1 million people with COVID virus running around, causing it. So again, no matter how you slice it and dice it, not looking good, not looking good. And then we have the mayor trying to make it basically a for sure deal that they can overrun the White House. And again, they're not going to let that happen. That's not happening. Change we can believe in. Hedridge is coming back into play. Oh man, talk about a rabbit hole I went down on this. Long story short, let me just jump. I think it's this post here. Yeah. Are Hedridge's pens, positions, comms. Follow the pen. They've been saying that in a bunch of posts. Have you not been following? Now this, talk about pissing people off. Wow, that really upset a lot of people. There's a lot of people that, get triggered easily. Long story short, I think basically what they came to is the position of these pens seems to be the second minute, or the minute hand and hour hand, and almost look like we're almost at midnight. So very late in the day. Now, some people said 2300. I'm like, how do you know if it's AM or PM? You don't. But again, 11th hour was kind of the thing that came to my mind a little bit. But that being said, the darkest night of the soul, all these things seem to kind of come into play. That being said, it sounds like we are right before ticking to midnight. And if that's the case, the Saturday thing coming up for sure. Also some discussion around the colors. What was it? I think the pink ones were already known and the yellow ones were new, or they were the ones that switched or flopped or whatever. I don't know. There were some other theories that went around it. Ultimately, it seems like the time is the thing that they're kind of trying to point out. We'll see, because tomorrow is probably going to be an interesting day. So again, follow the pen. Post 4424. What happens when the gag order is lifted? Case dismissed. What happens then? And this is a cool little final quote that General Flynn has left in a cool little memo that he did. Scott, the United States wants to survive the onslaught of socialism. If we are to continue to enjoy self-government, to secure the God-given individual blessings of liberty for ourselves, for our families, then good Americans must accept that each has a moral obligation to participate in the political life of our country. Long skinny of it is basically saying law enforcement and military people need to get more involved in the political process. So if we are not to be intimidated by the smear campaigns that will most likely come with greater and more active participation, we will only keep America if we dedicate ourselves to freedom's victory over the socialist monster by our good citizens accepting greater responsibility. I am not done. A letter from General Flynn. He's not done, folks. Sounds like someone's going to be brought back into play. He certainly knows where the bodies are buried. And to kind of get back to this, what happens when the gag order is lifted and he can finally talk about all the stuff? Why do you also think Sullivan, the judge that's refusing to release this or let this go, why do you think that's the case also? Again, things are unraveling too fast for the deep state. Things that they thought they had nailed down are not as nailed down as they once thought. I am not done. Be all that you can be. Army strong. They knew they could not destroy America through invasion. There's no way that would ever happen with too many guns. Infiltration at the highest level of government, media, science, health, military, COC, etc. Final level. Baby, we're going after the boss now. It's boss level. So, Michael Flynn, thank you, sir, for all you've been through, for being a patriot. And Trump, thank you for all the crap you put up with, man. I can't even believe it. You were just one of the most hated individuals and also one of the most loved. So it's pretty cool how that plays out. Post 4425, full MSDNC blitzkrieg, known and ready. They're expecting this. October surprises are being prepped and warmed. And of course, October is right before November. So yeah, October is going to be crazy. CNN person with direct knowledge. Oh yeah, he's in the loop apparently. He's been planning a town hall for months with Gary Cohn, Jim Mattis, John Kelly, and McMaster to air in September. They're going to make up stuff. They're going to say that Trump is unfit for office. Mattis and Kelly signed on. Cohn and HR are on the fence. Yep, they're trying to put it together. Remember, all they got to do is they're going to try to just keep trumping this whole anti-Trump movement. And yeah, they've got something major planned for September with some of our friends that have recently come out and decided to show their true mutiny colors. Very interesting how that played out. Post 4426. Important to understand, MSDNC social media projection, we are the minority, is false. Everyone keeps saying that everybody believes that Trump's horrible, that everybody knows he's divisive, that everybody says this, that, and the other thing. The thing that's really happening is most of us patriots aren't talking as loud about it to everyone else, especially people that we know are on the left and a waste of time to talk to. So there's this echo chamber that they're in, and they don't hear any other echoes, so they assume that everybody's saying the same thing. Funny thing is all this other stuff's going on behind closed doors, and the majority is growing every single second of the day. We are winning this war. The social media and MSDNC, which is well, we're the social media giants now, but these projections that we are divided is false. We are way more united than they realize. That is why they keep attacking this Q movement. That is why they keep attacking you and me. That is why. We scare them. We are a threat. We are the united. Where we go one, we go all. Patriots have no skin color, and they don't. We are Americans. We bleed red just like anybody else. Humanity is good, and ultimately so, humanity is good. That's the truth of the matter. So there's no new post. This is the last post. I want to thank everybody. Be on the lookout for what's going on in D.C. tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a very, very, very interesting day. Boom, 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 boom. Tomorrow is the big boom. And watch out, because D.C. is prepared for this. The Patriots are prepared for this. Curious to see where Trump's at. He's up in the cotton swab factory up in Maine on Friday today. We'll see where he is at, see if he's in Air Force One. That was one of the things that was prophesied by Q. So we'll see. Be on the lookout. Tomorrow is one of those days where it might be worthwhile to have the news on, maybe flip between a couple channels and see what's truly going on in the world, because it will be exciting. This I can assure you. But where we go one, we go all. It's on the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle.